Welcome to Clienting, your place to get information about legal marketing and client development. Welcome to episode number 4 of Clienting. This week, we're going to focus on 5-star customer service. My name is Kelly Street, the marketing director at Attorney Sync.
And I'm Tsakalakis, co-founder of Attorney Sync.
Today, we are joined by Attorney John Strohmeyer. So I took a sneak peek at John's Twitter a little bit to try to get to know him better. And he tweets a lot of fun pictures of some amazing socks. He has a really wide assortment of funny conference badges that he clearly made up himself or found on the internet. And most importantly, why he is joining us today is he used to work at a Four Seasons hotel. And so he is our definite expert on superior customer service. Thanks so much for joining us, John.
Great. Kelly, Dee, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk about this stuff.
Will you give our listeners just a little quick background on yourself?
Sure. I am currently a tax and estate planning attorney here in Houston, Texas. I also deal with clients who have international issues, so whether they own assets abroad or they're folks abroad investing in the U.S. But before I was a lawyer, I worked at the Four Seasons Hotel in Austin for 4 years. When I graduated college, I was not interested in moving back from Austin to Houston, and so I found the best job I could, and that was working at the Four Seasons. After a year of working at the front desk, I got promoted, and I was the night manager there for 3 years, where I'd show up at 11 o'clock at night, and I would be responsible, the last person in line in terms of who you'd ask questions to. From 11 at night until 8 or 9 in the morning. That was 5 nights a week that basically the keys to the hotel were in my hands. And so I was responsible for what went on in that hotel ultimately.
And that's the shift where all the tough problems happen.
You get different problems. And one of the big issues that we faced was during the day, you probably had 100 or so employees, depending on, volume of business, what was going on in the hotel. You'd have 100 or so people that you could bring to bear on any project if you needed it. The executives would come out and would be helping serve drinks or helping check people in if that's what it took. But at nighttime, it was me and a skeleton crew that usually was about 10 folks. Just because the sun goes down and more people are sleeping and we have, basically 10% of the staff, we didn't turn into the 2 seasons. We couldn't say, we're real sorry. You're going to have to wait 6 more hours for that until the day shift shows up. It's, okay, we're going to have to take care of these folks in the same way that if they had asked at 2 p.m. or 4 p.m. or 8 a.m.
And when they're tired and crabby.
Right. And, likely they've had a drink or two. Knowing how to handle people, one of the things that we got into was you've got to meet your client where they are. It doesn't matter that you're in one headspace. You've got to recognize where your client is. It wasn't just, the client may have had too many beers. It's when we checked folks in. The check-in desk at most hotels is about mid-chest level. If somebody comes up and they're in a wheelchair, you're asking them to sign something, sign the registration card, where it's likely going to be above their head. And so, the first time it happened, it was like, this is clearly what we need to do. But just being in the mindset of, figure out where they are. And I took that registration card, put it in a, kind of a hardback folio and walked around the desk and, handed it to them. And it was just kind of a minor thing. I didn't think any more about it at that time, but you could see the smile on the guest's face. And later, she just wrote this effusive comment card in just saying, it was the first time anybody had ever done that for her. I think I still have a copy of it in my files somewhere. Just kind of thinking about what it looks like from the other side and how you can meet your client where they are.
It seems like such a little thing, but it's always the little things that make such a big difference. I feel equally as impassioned about customer service. Right out of high school, I spent a year and a half working at Nordstrom, which is, at least used to be, fairly equally known as customer service heavy. And you just start to realize how many other companies are lacking in those small touches.
Right. It is those little things that separate where, the good and the great are. Because if you think about it, I will keep coming back to Four Seasons because I spent a lot of my time there. Lucky enough to spend almost 1,000 nights in Four Seasons. But what comes through is there's no special magic to a Four Seasons over, a Best Western or a Travelodge or anything else like that. You close your eyes and the bed you're in is going to be pretty much the same. The sheets, you'll have a different thread count. But what comes through in the way that Four Seasons can charge more over, the Travelodge and the Best Western is that service that they're delivering. It's not just that the Travelodge is very consistent. Like, you are going to get that consistent level there. And you know what you're getting into. And I'm not trying to damn them with faint praise. They know what they're doing, and they're aiming for a specific segment of the market. The Four Seasons is doing the same thing. They're just aiming at a higher segment of the market, and it creates additional revenue for them because they have that specific niche in the market.
Absolutely.
Right. At the risk of continuing this ad for the Four Seasons, I went to their website. They actually, for folks that want to do follow-up, and we'll post this in the show notes, it's something that at Attorney Sync that we pride ourselves on as well, as being mission, vision, and values focused. And it's clear they've done this exercise, but they're on their service culture page. And this goes back to something that was said earlier. It seems like this is such like a simple idea, but I think it's really the essence of what we're talking about is that under their how we behave section, they say we seek to deal with others as we would have them deal with us. I mean, it's like golden rule stuff, but if we don't put this up, if we don't put it on the wall, if we don't remind everybody on the team in every way that we can to put this straight forward, it's so easily forgotten.
Right. And, there are a couple ways that the Four Seasons did that. I mean, at a first blow, what they did was they created their own initialism that kind of said, look, here are the 7 points we need everybody to remember all of the time. And, it spells out service, but, kind of quickly it's S is for smile, because everybody should start every interaction with a smile, no matter what's going on. It doesn't mean that you're not going to then, if you need to frown or be upset with the guest or alongside the guest, to be the better way of putting that, you can do that, but you need to go in smiling because you want people to be, feel warm and welcome there. E was for eye contact. Like if you're interacting with a guest, you're focused on them. If you've got your eyes on the computer terminal or something else, they're not going to think you're paying attention to them. Now, you may say, oh, look, I can do two things at once. Yeah, you probably can, but the perception and what the guest was seeing was not that you were focused on them. R was going to be recognized, so being not only knowing their name, but recognizing who they are and where they are. So again, like the story I had about the wheelchair and the guest who was in that and kind of recognizing where they were. Voice, having strong, clear voice, you should know what's going on and know how to, effectively convey that you know what's going on, and people don't think, oh, he said that, he kind of quavered when he spoke. Does he really know, or is he just kind of making something up to get rid of me? Next was I for informed, making sure people know what is going on in the hotel. And so there would be a daily one sheet that, as night manager, it was my job to produce, and just saying, here's all the important people coming in every day. Here are the important people who are leaving. Here are all the events. Here's, kind of a snapshot of what is going to happen in the hotel today. Everybody in the hotel would get copies. Everybody on staff would. And it was just a way to make sure everybody knew what was happening. C is going to be for clean. Just that was the standard. There was no way to put it other than it needed to be spotless all the time. And finally, E was for everyone. So, this applied as much to the front doorman as it did to the bookkeeping clerk, who almost never dealt with any of the guests directly, because you didn't want to have one set of rules for one group and one set for another one. So again, I know I kind of ran through those. This is going to be smile, eye contact, recognize, voice, informed, clean, and everyone. And it wasn't just that we had these words that we knew and kind of applied to everything he did in the hotel. This ended up being painted in 3-foot-high letters down the employee entrance. So every person, as they came into the hotel every day, would see these painted in gigantic letters, and it was just there. And so even though I left the hotel back in 2006, I checked in with a friend of mine who still works there, and they have repainted them since then, but they are still there.
I think it's really awesome that they've made that commitment. And again, I think there's so much to be gained from this, from their experience and your experiences there. But let me back up for 1 second. And what do you say to the lawyers who say, oh, yeah, this is all well and good, but day to day, like this is not how things work with clients. And really at the end of the day, like I'm a lawyer, clients are coming to me because they need my professional advice. Like, why should I even really care about service? Aren't they going to come and be my client anyway? Because I'm the specialist on this stuff. Like, what's in it for me here to provide this client service stuff?
Sure. I mean, there are kind of two ways to break that down. The first is, well, that's right. You don't have to focus on this. This is something, if you don't want to deal with it, that's fine. And I'm going to short circuit all of my explanation and just say, Jordan Furlong does a much better job of explaining how the market for legal services is changing. And I'm just going to rely on him as the evidence for this. But the market's changing, and it's turning into a market where the clients have the power. They are able to better take care of themselves, and they have a choice among their service providers. They can find 2 or 3 different attorneys pretty quickly to deal with any one issue. And I know I've experienced this where you'll get a call, and if it goes to voicemail, you'll call somebody back as soon as you can get to it. And sometimes it's been 5 or 10 minutes because I was on a different call. I call them back and they say, oh, that's all right. We've already found somebody else. Like if I'd been able to answer the call, the client would have stuck with me probably, but they ended up going somewhere else because I wasn't right there to answer the call.
John, I'm so glad that you shared that. We're willing to share that story. And it's almost like we had lined this up beforehand, but I promise we didn't, by the way. I hear that story time and time again. And so many lawyers are so surprised. And a lot of them end up concluding that, they wouldn't have been a good client anyway. And it's so true. The power, that's one of the things communication technologies have done, the internet, social platforms. The shortest answer, though, is that if you treat clients poorly, they're going to go tell their friends, they're going to go tell their colleagues, and if you're really lucky, they're going to go share that experience online and leave you a nasty review.
Right. And at the hotel, kind of the mantra we spread around was, if somebody has a great experience with us, we're probably lucky if they tell 1 or 2 people. But if they have a bad experience, they're going to tell everybody. And I think the number that the folks at the hotel had come up with through their research, and kind of not just at our location in Austin, but through corporate, was on average, they were going to tell 10 people that something bad had gone wrong. But if you think about it with Twitter, and if you go back in my Twitter feed far enough, you will see me getting very angry at Southwest last summer when they weren't taking care of me the way I thought they should. We ended up resolving it, but your potential clients have the ability to spread a message very quickly, and just being cognizant of how that dynamic works. And, it's not always in your favor. So just you have to kind of reach out and manage and know that it's something that can come back on you.
So John, tell us what your definition of customer service is, just as kind of a recap, and then what kinds of things don't really fall into the category of customer service.
Sure. As lawyers, we love definitions, and how can we make sure we know something is in or out? I've come up with the definition of customer service as the support that a business delivers beyond its technical or physical product. So kind of, if you would break that down, the technical or physical product, that's the base level, what is being delivered to the client. For lawyers, that is legal advice and representation. It may also include documents, basic job of what you're doing. McDonald's, their technical or physical product is going to be hamburgers and French fries, things like that. And the hotel, it's not just the room, but it's also the food that's delivered as room service. The stuff that ends up being the product that's delivered. Anything beyond that, going to be that support, and that's how you deliver, customer service, and that's where you're looking at what the service is that's delivered to your clients. What gets mistaken is, people confuse, well, all right, something that's maybe associated with that technical or physical product may just be part of that technical or physical product and isn't that client service. The fact that the Four Seasons has, marble and fine stone and white linen napkins available, that's not the customer service. That's really something you can go and pick up off the shelf somewhere. The service is what's being delivered by the people in the business. So the fact that you have the fine linens or the fancy silverware. That's just essentially window dressing on your physical product. Turning it to lawyers, when I have a client sign a will, if I have it on bond paper or copy paper, it doesn't make a bit of difference in terms of what's going to be admissible in the courts. If I go down there with a will, if I go down to the probate court and I've got a will on copy paper, the court isn't going to say one thing to me about the quality of that paper. And it's recognizing, spending money on those things, those fineries, such as fancy offices and bond paper. It's not that they're unimportant, but you need to categorize them as not part of your customer service. Those things, the finery, that's one thing that's not going to be customer service.
From personal experience, I can say that what the client doesn't care about is the kind of paper you use, but what they do care about is when you're going to sign your living will, that your information is the information that is actually on the piece of paper.
Absolutely right. And that's kind of part two of what else isn't customer service. And that's going to be the substantive knowledge that you're bringing to bear for your clients. It's that technical product that you're providing to your clients. Now, there are some lawyers out there who are, best of class in particular areas of the law. And, they may have a special relationship with the law in that they can deliver results that nobody else can. The reality is most of us aren't in that level of just world beater lawyers for our particular practice area. We are great at what we do, but the fact is most of the folks around us can probably do as good a job as we could. And again, I'm saying that about myself. I like what I do. I think I'm pretty good at it, but I would not say I have any special mastery or special exclusive rights to deliver a better product in terms of the legal advice that I could give. So, that substantive knowledge, in many cases, is going to be part of that technical product.
So down to brass tacks here.
Mm-hmm.
We know all the awesome things that the Four Seasons are doing and all of those additional little details. And I love their service acronym for how they train their staff to treat their customers. But what are some tangible, real things that lawyers can either look for in experiences that they have or in things that they can do with their clients to make sure that they're providing 5-star, top-notch customer service?
Oh, sure. Because that's what you want to know right now. How can we get at least that one little bit better? And there are some things. The first and the easiest is to smile. It makes sure that the folks you are dealing with, and this isn't just your clients, but it's your staff as well. You need to start with a smile with them to make sure, people feel warm and welcome to deal with you. Given the option between somebody who's smiling when they first encounter you and somebody who's just going to be a grump about it, which would you choose? If you had the choice between a lawyer who has, kind of that stern, gruff lawyer that we've all seen, if you had the choice between that lawyer and somebody who's smiling in their photo, which one do you want to choose? Which one do you think would be better able to deliver negative news to you, or which would you rather hear that negative news from? It just kind of redounds to all these different areas, and it's such a simple thing of starting with a smile makes it easier for everybody else.
Yeah, you can be the bulldog lawyer in the courtroom, but when you're interacting on a daily basis with that client, you better be someone they want to interact with.
Absolutely. And people tend to forget, oh, well, I'm on a phone call. Here we're on a internet chat right now doing this. I'm still, you've got your photos up and y'all are smiling in your photos. And in my mind, I am keeping that in my mind. I'm also making sure that I'm trying to smile as I'm speaking to you because it still comes through. You have to try even harder on phone calls because the other person isn't there. And especially if it's a client you've only met once or twice in person, you have to make sure that they get that from you, that you're still the friendly person. They still want to stay with you. Kind of one of the dirty secrets about this is if you've got a client who is happy with you, they're probably not going to file a grievance against you. You can give them bad news and it'll still be okay. That they can understand if you're treating them the right way. In my practice, I deal with estate administrations. And so you'll get clients who are upset and, small deviations can really send the wrong people into just sad states. And Being able to know that they can trust you and rely on you and that you ultimately are there for them to take care of them. That's a big deal.
Very true.
Let me throw some of these ideas float around with lawyers in the context of whether they think it's to do with marketing or customer service. I kind of wanted you to speak to this as well. Just you could certainly borrow from your experience of the Four Seasons or stuff that you apply today. But what I want to drive at are types of things that are beyond kind of like the day-to-day that you might go out of your way to do that kind of demonstrate this remarkable service. Some of these things that often come up are like handwritten notes, thank you notes, seasonal cards, letters. Is that for your clients in your experience, or even if you want to go back to the Four Seasons, that's the type of thing that customers and clients resonated with them, or is that kind of a thing of the past? And what are some other things that today that lawyers should be thinking about doing that are beyond the the core service smile stuff that you've seen that you think are effective?
One of the things that's really worked for me, it's the attention to detail that's not already part of the representation. If I know the names of my estate planning clients' children and grandchildren, but that's not special. Like, asking about little Billy and little Susie as part of an estate planning thing, well, I should know who they are and should remember who they are as part of things that are going along. But if I'm representing a doctor just solely as part of a negotiations with their practice group, and I know the name of their kid and kind of can work that in and just say, oh, how are little Billy and Susie? And we really haven't talked about them much. They're not involved in the representation, but just showing that you remember who they are is one way to do it. Something else I did for one of my clients a few years ago, I knew that once he had finished his residency, he was going to take a year to travel with his wife before starting down and really getting into his practice. Now, I'd done a lot of long-term travel before starting my practice as well. And one of the books that I'd read was called Vagabonding. And it had helped me kind of focus and enjoy the trip a lot more. And so I made sure, gave him a copy of that during one of our meetings when he was still in residency. Just like, here you go. This helped me a lot. You may like it. It was a $10 paperback book, and I would just get emails from him over the course, the run-up to his departure. And like, oh, well, I'm reading it tonight, but that's only because I was able to steal it away from my wife, who was also reading it. And just that little tweak, it cost me anything but $10, and paying attention, knowing he was going to go travel and being able to connect it. That sort of little thing had such a huge impact. He knew that I was kind of thinking about him and more than just how do we work with him on his particular legal issues.
Nice. And so getting into diving real deep into at least your process, what types of systems, processes, tools, software, whatever, do you use to kind of organize client information? I mean, are you paper files or, how do you remember Billy and Susie's birthday and that kind of stuff? Or is that just rote memorization for you?
Oh, no. I mean, I would love to think that I could keep all of this in my head, but I have learned over both my hotel career and my legal career, I just can't keep it all in my head. Right now, I'm in the process of transitioning a lot of this to Trello, just as a way of, systematizing it. It's typed up, and then it can be shared with other team members. And then Trello also has things where you can make things like form checklists. So you can say, okay, well, if we're going to engage in this sort of behavior, or this sort of representation, we know these are the tasks. For the last few years, I have used a Kanban board where I just have 3x5 Post-it notes that, each client gets their own, and it's got a list of everything going on. And so I move it from my immediate work pile to it's on this other attorney or assistant's desk and I'm waiting for them. And it's a way to just kind of visually see where things are. And it's really nice. As I finish tasks, I tend to hoard all of my completed Post-its. So at the end of the year, I'll have a 3-inch stack of used Post-its. And it's nice to see, it's look at how much I got done last year.
That's really cool. I love that you have that visual representation.
Right.
Keeping yourself on track and then also letting you know at the end of the year, man, I did a lot.
Right.
So, John, I know one of the things you mentioned when we were emailing about today's topic is empowering your employees. How do you suggest lawyers can do that with their front desk staff, for their paralegals? What are some tips you have for
Right.
that?
It's what you're trying to do with empowering your employees. We're all subject to the ethical guidelines. We can't let the assistant do more than she is capable of doing. And that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm not trying to say we turn the assistants and the paralegals into lawyers. But it's making sure that they know they have the authority to take care of the client right there. As an example, if somebody calls and they want to know, they want to speak with you, if you're not available because you're on another call, you're at a hearing, you're in a meeting, whatever that reason is, letting the caller know, he's in this meeting. Is there anything that that person can help you with? Because it might be something as simple as, when's my next meeting with the attorney? Or it may be, when's the hearing date? And so you need to make sure that the folks who work for you know how to access that information. And I know certain client management systems will make that easier to see, so it's not just stuck in the lawyer's head. But beyond that, if it's, well, I needed to call and talk to John about, XYZ, make sure that the person answering the call knows to say, okay, well, I can send you to the black hole of voicemail where they may or may not get an answer for a few days. Let me find a time on John's calendar where it makes sense for the two of you to talk, because, sure, they're calling me with a question, and yes, I may have that answer ready to go. But the other side of it is, well, what if it's something where I want 5 minutes to prepare so I at least know what I'm being asked, and I don't have to make the client wait while I dig out the answer. If it's something of, hey, we were thinking about doing this with our business. Does this make sense? I may have something in the file that says, this is how to do it. And if you give me 5 minutes to prepare, if I know what's coming, that's going to be a more effective call. So just having the assistant, whoever's taking that call, get a time for them to be on the calendar to talk and know what they want to talk about. And then you're both coming to the call ready instead of one of you springing something on the other. Occasionally, I'm not a litigator. I don't want to be a litigator, but getting surprise calls from litigators, like, hey, are you ready to talk about this? No, no, I'm not. And, it comes up, and sometimes that's a tactic, and sometimes it's just, oh, I'm going to call the person now. Kind of take the sting out of it and allow both people to effectively communicate. And that's putting something down on your employees where, hey, make sure that your job is to make it as easy as possible for our clients to deal with us.
Yeah, setting expectations is a key that often gets missed. I really love what you said about saying, no, lawyer is in X meeting right now. Let's set up a time for you to talk, because that is so much more meaningful than saying, oh, sorry, they're unavailable. They can call you back in about 2 hours.
Right. Just knowing, oh, okay, John's going to call me back at 4:00 tomorrow afternoon. Or whatever it is. Okay, I don't have to worry about this, or I at least can take my worry down a level because I don't need to worry about when he'll call me back. I know up until 4:00 and 59 seconds, I'm still good. At 4:01, if he's not there, then we've got a different problem. But up until then, you can at least say, okay, if this is not an emergency and I really needed to talk to him right now because something terrible was going to happen, they can relax and know that the help is coming. If it is something where it is like break into the meeting, thing is happening, somebody's walking off with something, I need you now. Knowing also to recognize where your client is and kind of effectively manage that situation is part of it too.
Awesome. All right, John, any last parting words of wisdom for our listeners on 5-star customer service?
Oh, for the lawyers who are interested in this, it is a new way of being able to put your practice out there without just adding, we're client focused to your website. Putting into place the systems and practices so that not just you, but everybody on your team knows how to kind of focus on your client so that they'll be happy with you and they'll talk about you and they'll send more people to you.
Fabulous. Well, John, thank you so much for being with us. If you didn't catch this on our last episode, John actually reached out to Guy and I at Clienting and let us know that he had some words of wisdom on customer service, and that's how he got to be a guest on the show. So if you also have some words of wisdom for the legal community out there on client development or legal marketing, hit us up and let us know.
And as always, don't forget to check out the show notes because there's a lot of good information shared in here, and we'll provide links to some of the tools and some of the books and other resources to do follow-up on. And of course, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you so much, John. We really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you, Kelly and Guy. Pleasure to be here today.